Welcome to the English Boost podcast. I'm so excited for today's deep dive because, well, we're talking about something I think literally everyone listening to this has experienced.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a universal struggle, really.
Right. So picture this. You're sitting across from someone, maybe it's your partner, maybe a friend, and your heart just knows this entirely, incredibly complex backstory of why you're hurting.
Yeah, you've got all the receipts in your head.
Exactly. But the moment you open your mouth to try and explain it in English, all those carefully constructed thoughts just poof, they completely vanish.
It's just gone. Like your brain just wiped the hard drive.
Yes. And you're left staring at them while your brain is basically panicking. And it hands you exactly three basic options to describe your rich, nuanced internal world. You can be sad, you can be angry, or you can be tired.
And that's it. That's the menu.
That's the whole menu. And it's funny, but it's also genuinely frustrating because today's deep dive into our sources is built entirely around that specific frustration.
Yeah, because it's an experience that leaves you feeling, quite honestly, entirely misrepresented.
Right.
You end up relying on these really broad, blunt linguistic instruments to perform what is essentially delicate emotional surgery.
Right.
And the collateral damage to the relationship and, frankly, to your own confidence, it can be significant.
It really can, which is why our mission today is so important. We're looking at some fascinating research on emotional regulation and bilingual emotional expression. And the goal here for you listening isn't about learning, textbook perfect English, right?
No, not at all. It's not about memorizing massive lists of obscure vocabulary.
Right. It's about finding honest, clear English that actually sounds like the real you. Even when you're under stress, so you don't sound dramatic or cold or weak just because your vocabulary feels limited in that moment.
Which is a crucial distinction. Because when you feel something profoundly, but the cognitive load, the stress of the moment, forces it out sounding overly simple or vaguely aggressive, people misunderstand you,
They really do. They assume you're just being dramatic.
right? Or emotionally distant. And it's just because the vocabulary available to you right then couldn't capture the nuance.
Okay, let's unpack this mechanism because the sources use this brilliant analogy for why that vocabulary access fails us. They call it the emotional cable drawer.
I love this analogy so much.
It's so good, right? Because we tend to think that if we're feeling something, we should just be able to pull open a drawer in our mind, find one neat, easily identifiable emotion, and name it.
Just a perfectly labeled little folder.
Exactly. But the reality is emotions are crowded. You pull open that drawer and you don't find a single feeling. You find every metaphorical tangled phone charger you've owned since 2014.
The ones that don't even fit any device you currently own.
Yes, you're looking for the word upset and you pull out an old laptop charger from a job you quit 5 years ago. It's just a chaotic space.
It really is.
But this raises a question for me. If someone says, I don't know how I feel, are they actually confused or are they just overwhelmed by the crowd of emotions?
What's fascinating here is that it's almost always the latter. They're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And this comes down to the distinction between primary and secondary emotion.
Okay, secondary emotions, like what?
Well, let's look at a really blunt word like angry.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic one.
Right. Anger is highly accessible, even when you're super stressed. But anger is almost always a secondary emotion. It acts as a bodyguard.
A bodyguard. I like that.
Yeah, it exists to cover up a more vulnerable primary emotion.
Yeah.
So if you untangle those cables in the drawer underneath the anger, you typically find hurt or fear or, a deep sense of disappointment.
So when you're struggling in English, the translation error isn't just from your native language. It's an internal translation error from your true feeling to just a surface level feeling.
Precisely. Someone might say, I'm angry because it's the loudest word they can grab. But the precise truth hidden in the drawer is, actually, I felt ignored.
Wow.
Or take the word tired. The sources point out that tired is doing a tremendous amount of heavy lifting in modern communication.
Oh, tired is overworked. Tired needs a vacation.
It really does. Because people use it to carry the weight of stress, of disappointment, of confusion, or just the sheer exhaustion of having, 2 unread text messages.
Right. You say you're tired, and it could mean literally anything.
Exactly. But saying I'm tired just signals to the other person a need for sleep. Whereas saying I feel emotionally drained signals a need for support.
That is such a subtle shift, but it changes the entire trajectory of how the other person responds. You need to articulate it clearly.
Yes, articulate, giving clear words to the feeling.
Right, like you can be in a crowded room and feel terrible. If you just say, I feel bad, nobody knows what to do with that.
Yeah, it's too vague.
But if you upgrade it and say, I felt overlooked or I felt disconnected, suddenly you've handed them a map. But okay, here is the challenge. Once you do untangle those cables and find the right words, how do you say them out loud without instantly starting a fight?
That is the million-dollar question.
Because when we're hurt, our first sentence usually arrives with like, messy hair and no plan.
It really does. It arrives as a pure physiological threat response.
Oh.
When we feel attacked, our amygdala just takes over.
The panic button.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It bypasses the logical language part of your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how a simple conversation instantly devolves into what the sources call the emotional courtroom.
Oh, the emotional courtroom. We've all been there.
Hmm.
Suddenly you're a lawyer, you're slamming your fist on the table like, Your Honor, I have text screenshots from 2021 that prove my point.
Right. Complete with timestamps. It is pure drama.
It really is.
And it's entirely counterproductive. So the literature offers a crucial rule here. Lower the accusation, raise the clarity.
Okay, but I want to push back on that a bit.
Sure.
Let's say I'm in a high-stakes corporate environment, and a colleague completely takes credit for my work. If I go in with an I feel statement, if I say, I felt overlooked when that was presented, doesn't that risk making me sound weak?
I hear that a lot.
Like I'm making it all about my soft feelings, rather than the fact that they literally stole my work.
It's a really common fear. But behavioral research actually suggests the exact opposite. Lowering the accusation doesn't make you weak. It gives you more rhetorical power.
Really? How so?
Think about the mechanics of defensiveness. If you say, you stole my credit, or you never listened to me, you're making an objective claim about their character.
Right, you're attacking them.
And their immediate neurological response is to defend against a perceived threat. They literally stop listening to you and just start building their counterargument.
Because their brain perceives you never listen the same way it perceives, like a physical attack.
Yes. But when you switch to, I felt ignored when I tried to explain myself, you are stating an unassailable fact about your own experience.
They can't argue with how I felt.
Exactly. No one can debate your feelings.
Right.
You're highlighting the impact of their action without attacking their personality. It bypasses their threat detection, which prevents them from getting defensive.
That makes a lot of sense.
And that's the only way they'll actually have the capacity to hear you.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because if asserting ourselves, even with these perfectly crafted, non-threatening statements, if that requires navigating a psychological minefield,
Which it does.
a lot of people just choose the opposite route. They do the polite silence, they smile, act normal, and just say, oh, no problem.
The dangerous, no problem.
Right. But isn't staying quiet sometimes just the safer survival strategy, especially when speaking in English requires so much extra mental effort?
Well, it might feel like a survival strategy in the moment,
Right.
but the sources are very clear on the cost of keeping things bottled up.
What's the cost?
When you offer a polite no problem that actually has thunder behind it, you're creating a massive internal pressure. Unexpressed feelings don't just disappear.
They don't just evaporate because you forced a smile.
Exactly. They're stored, they build pressure, much like a shaken soda bottle.
Oh, that's a great visual.
Right. The pressure mounts with every swallowed frustration, and then, invariably, someone forgets to buy bread at the grocery store.
And the bottle completely bursts. Suddenly you're having a massive fight about 3 weeks of feeling unappreciated.
And your partner's just standing there bewildered, thinking, I just forgot the sourdough. Why are we yelling?
Because they're responding to the bread, and you're responding to a month of suppressed data.
Exactly. Which is why the sources advocate for preventative language. You have to speak up while the feeling is still small.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice?
You can use a phrase like, I don't want this to build up, so I want to mention it now.
Oh, I like that. It acknowledges that there's potential for drama without actually being dramatic.
Right. It's very mature. Another great phrase is, I know this may not have been your intention, but it affected me.
Oh, wow. That is incredibly strategic. Because it gives them the benefit of the doubt, right? It separates their intent from the actual impact.
It's a highly sophisticated linguistic tool. You're telling them, hey, I don't think you're a bad person, but I'm also refusing to minimize my own experience.
It keeps the soda bottle from ever getting shaken in the first place.
Exactly.
But, okay, let's look at the reality where the bottle was shaken. Things built up, the cap flew off, and the emotion is running incredibly hot.
It happens to all of us.
It really does. And like we said earlier, anger is that loud bodyguard that shows up first. It's like when you do all the work for a project and your manager chimes in with, "Great team effort, everyone."
Oh, corporate emotional damage at its finest.
Yes, complete corporate emotional damage. When that happens, my English vocabulary shrinks down to about 5 words, and none of them are productive.
Naturally, you just want to lash out.
Right. I just want to react suddenly and hurtfully before my words are even ready. So how do we navigate this when the emotion escapes before the intellect can catch it?
This is where we have to introduce the concept of composure. Now, composure is often misunderstood. People think it means you have no emotion or you're just hiding your anger.
Like you're a robot.
Right. But the literature defines it differently. Composure is about holding the intense feeling carefully while your brain catches up.
The sources have that great analogy for this. The full, hot cup of tea.
Yes. Imagine you're holding a cup of tea, and it is filled to the very brim with scalding hot water.
If you sprint across the room with that key.
You are going to spill it everywhere.
Yeah.
You'll burn yourself. You'll burn anyone near you. You have to move deliberately. You have to consciously slow your pace.
And that deliberate slowing down is even more vital when you're speaking a second language, because you already have a built-in processing lag.
Exactly. So linguistically, you achieve composure by using phrases designed exclusively to buy you time.
Like what?
Simply saying, I need a moment to process that.
That's good. It's not hiding the feeling.
No, it's not a sign of weakness. It's an assertion of control. Or, let's say the tea has already spilled a little bit. You can use a repair phrase like, I'm sorry, that came out harsher than I meant.
Wait, if I say that came out harsher than I meant, does that mean I'm retracting my boundary? Like I'm saying, oh, never mind, I'm not upset.
Not at all. You are taking responsibility for the delivery, but you are not apologizing for the core emotion. It just slows the whole interaction down so you can choose words that actually help rather than just throwing blunt instruments at them.
Okay, let's play this out then. You've done the work. You looked in the emotional cable drawer. You avoided the courtroom. You held the hot tea carefully. You speak honestly.
Okay.
But the other person just reacts terribly. You share something really vulnerable, and they are totally dismissive. They roll their eyes and say, ugh, you're being way too sensitive.
That is incredibly painful.
It is. So how do you defend yourself in English when someone is actively minimizing your reality?
Well, a dismissive reaction is destabilizing, right? So
Yeah.
your instinct is to escalate. You want to prove how hurt you are by getting louder.
Yeah, you want to yell.
But the strategy here relies on a very different principle. You don't need to get louder. You need to get clearer.
Clearer, not louder. But I imagine the temptation to just say, fine, forget it, and walk away is huge.
Well, walking away with a fine forget it is a trap because it looks like you're taking the high road. But internally, you're just quietly preparing dangerous emotional weather for later. You're bottling it up again.
Right. So what do we say instead?
The sources suggest holding your ground with definitive boundaries. You can firmly say, please do not minimize this.
Wow, just straight to the point.
Or, you may not have meant to hurt me, but the impact was still real.
I love that. You are refusing to debate whether your feeling is valid. You're just stating that it exists.
Exactly.
I want to look at the other side of this, though. What if someone is coming to us with their tangled cables? Because my first instinct, whenever a friend is upset, is to instantly try to fix it.
The classic fixer mentality.
Yes. If someone is crying, my brain immediately opens a 7-step emotional improvement slideshow. Like step 1, hydrate. Step 2, we are confronting your boss.
No, you got a whole action plan.
But the research suggests that's actually a form of dismissiveness, isn't it?
It is. It's a well-intentioned one, but it is dismissive. The urge to fix someone else's problem usually stems from our own discomfort with sitting in negative emotion. We want the problem solved, so we don't have to feel uncomfortable anymore.
Oh, wow. That's a call-out.
But a 7-step slideshow is rarely what a distressed person needs. They don't need an architectural plan for their life. They just need a safe place to put the heavy feeling down.
So how do we offer that space, linguistically?
It's through the skill of validation. And validation doesn't mean you agree with everything they say or that you admit fault if you're arguing. It just means you show you understand why they feel that way.
Give me an example.
You can just say, that sounds like an incredibly heavy thing to carry.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It does more to regulate their nervous system than any unsolicited advice ever could.
The sources also mention a very specific question to ask when someone is venting, asking, do you want advice or do you just want me to listen?
That is perhaps the most emotionally intelligent question you can deploy. It respects their autonomy completely.
It gives them the choice.
Exactly. It lets them dictate what kind of support they can actually handle in that moment.
That distinction changes everything. But, it does raise a final logistical question for me about how much we are actually supposed to be sharing.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, now that we have all these linguistic tools to articulate perfectly, is the goal to share everything all the time? Like if a coworker casually asks, "Hey, how was your weekend?" Am I supposed to force them to watch the full emotional documentary of my life, season 1, episode 1, with subtitles?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, absolutely not. Emotional intelligence isn't just about knowing how to open the cable drawer. It's equally about knowing when to keep the drawer shut.
Right. Boundaries.
Yes. And people frequently misinterpret boundaries as these aggressive, hostile walls.
Yeah, we imagine them as giant red warning signs with barbed wire. Keep out.
But in reality, healthy boundaries are just polite fences with emotional intelligence. You're using your English to manage the environment around you. If you're overwhelmed, you can draw a line respectfully.
The sources offer some great examples of those polite fences, like simply saying, "I appreciate you asking, but I'm not ready to talk about it yet."
It's perfect.
Oh,
It acknowledges their attempt to connect, but firmly protects your space. Or if a conversation is getting heated,
yeah.
you can say, I care about you, but I need this conversation to stay respectful.
"I care about you, but I need this conversation to stay respectful."
Mm.
That phrasing is incredible. It affirms the relationship first,
Which bypasses their amygdala.
but it sets a hard limit on their behavior.
You're no longer a victim of the emotional courtroom. You are dictating the rules of engagement.
So what does this all mean for us as we navigate a second language? We've looked at the messy cable drawers of primary and secondary emotions. We've explored the courtroom, the toll of polite silences, the hot tea of composure, and these polite fences.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. And I think the core takeaway here is that communicating your internal world in English doesn't require perfection. It requires patient, human English. Clear, honest phrasing prevents your feelings from either hiding away or just taking over the room entirely.
It really does. And I want to leave everyone with a final provocative thought to ponder.
Oh, I love these. Let's hear it.
We generally operate under the assumption that we are trying to find the exact right words so that other people can finally understand us. We want the world to see us clearly.
Right, that's why we study so hard.
But what if the real magic of learning to articulate your complex feelings in a second language isn't about the other person at all? What if, in the rigorous process of searching for those honest words, you finally begin to truly understand yourself?
Wow. When the language stops being just a bridge to someone else and finally becomes a mirror, that is incredible. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in to the English Boost podcast. Keep practicing, keep finding your words, and we will see you next time.